How's it going, friends? Logan Myers here from Cinephellas.com reviewing Krampus on Blu-ray. I want to start off by saying that I love Michael Dougherty. I love his graphic novels. He did Trick or Treat, 2 of them, and Krampus, Shadow of St. Nicholas, that is right here, that I picked up before I went and saw the movie, actually on Christmas with my family, which may sound a little demented, but that's just who we are. We love a good horror movie on Christmas when everybody's full of joy and Santa Claus and candy canes. We want to see some gore and some killing. And I love his first film, which was Trick or Treat, based off the graphic novel, which is 4 stories intertwined into one, based around Halloween, and it's literally one of my favorite Halloween movies to watch now every October. And if you haven't seen it, go check that out. And I'm wearing my Sam from Trick or Treat gear right here, and my tattoo. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, so I would say that I was pretty excited about this film when I saw the trailer, and just reading about it, I knew that it was going to be good because Michael Dougherty, he knows horror and he knows how to bring it to the big screen. Even with a low budget or independent movie like this, I was really looking forward to it. So Krampus is a bit different than the graphic novel. In the graphic novel, there's 4 stories like Trick or Treat that are based around Krampus and all the bad people that he comes back to torture, that, you know, are basically on the naughty list. The film starts off with, you know, what most people know today as Christmas is Christmas shopping and beating the shit out of each other to save money on all these Black Friday deals and trying to save $5 on a movie or some clothes that you're trying to buy for your grandma. So the opening sequence of the movie is great, and it really sets the tone for the rest of the film. It kind of has that darker feel to it, and it has that 80s horror kind of element to it that we've seen with Gremlins, we've seen with Silent Night, Deadly Night, and a little bit of Christmas Vacation as well. And the story takes place with a somewhat normal family, suburban family. You know, the parents, the dad's always working. You know, you got the cookie cutter mom that's at home baking goods and making food for the family, and you got a son and a daughter. Max is the main focal point in this film, and he writes a letter to Santa Claus and wishing, you know, these good things would happen to his family that are basically in time of need. Parents aren't getting along. Him and his sister don't talk anymore. And he writes this letter, and basically when the in-laws come over for Christmas, they steal the letter and start making fun of him because he's a little kid and he wants all these nice things for, you know, in his family to happen, and basically they're not. So Max is really upset. You know, his cousins start to read his letter to Santa Claus, and he gets really upset, and he wishes that everybody, you know, would just leave, and he doesn't want to be a part of the family anymore. And it kind of has that sense of Home Alone where he wants to be home alone, and has that Kevin McAllister feel to him. So he gets upset after his family, aunt, uncle, and cousins show up, and goes upstairs and basically rips up this letter to Santa Claus, throws it in the air, and goes off into the clouds. And that's how Krampus comes into play. And Krampus is basically the opposite of St. Nicholas or Santa Claus. He comes back to torment and kill people that are on the naughty list that are not doing good things in their life. And basically the rest of the movie is revolved around him and his minions. He comes back to this family and wreaks havoc on them with his minions. And, you know, it's all really because of Max, of his wish to not be part of the family and to tearing up his letter to Santa Claus and throwing it into the night sky. So for the rest of the film, it's like an 80s horror film, like I was saying, like something out of Stephen King or Gremlins. It is basically this family that's trapped indoors because of this blizzard that takes place thanks to old Krampus, whatever. And they're stuck inside and they can't leave. The electricity's off. Everybody around them's not answering their phones. They have no cell reception. They're trying to figure out what the hell to do. And this really introduces more of the family. You have Adam Scott, which we all know and love. He's been in so many different movies, Step Brothers for one. And for once, he's not that douchebag character. He's actually the hero in this story. He's the father of Max. And he's the one that has his head on straight and trying to figure out what they're going to do. You know, when bad things start to happen. Toni Collette plays the mother. She's also really great in this film. David Koechner is Max's uncle, which is more like an Uncle Eddie character, but just not as funny. But he has his moments in the film. And basically, Max's sister goes out to find her boyfriend that's not responding to the text messages, and then she doesn't come back, and Adam Scott and David Koechner go out to try to find her, and they come across these minions. And there's a lot of great practical effects in this film, one being the snowman. There's a Jack-in-the-Box. Well, there's little goblin-like minions that are running around, which are much like the comic, and they're probably one of the better parts of the film in terms of the evil entities that are there to terrorize the family. But I think one of the highlights of the film, and one of the best characters, is the older grandma, the German-speaking grandma that is aware of Krampus and his whole backstory and what he's there to do. And she's the one that really holds down the fort when everybody starts dissipating and, you know, things start to go wrong. She knows what's going down and you know, makes Max aware of the situation. And as all these evil minions start to overtake their house, they're coming through the chimney and the door and making sure that they're there to do one thing, and that's to terrorize and kill a family one by one. And that's basically what happens. I won't say who gets murdered or anything like that, but I will say that they're there and they're pretty scary. I mean, especially the minions are very scary. They're really well done. The practical effects are excellent. There's really 0 to none CGI in this film. In the intro part where you actually see Krampus for the first time on the top of the roof, jumping from one house to the next, that was really well done and executed. And just the colors of the skies and the blizzards, just a lot of blues and whites, and it really sets the tone, and it kind of gives you that feeling of terror. You see Krampus throughout the film in little excerpts, but overall it was more focused on the minions and these characters that he brings to this family that are in a Santa Claus bag, and they start coming out. And there's this one scene with these evil gingerbread men. They're actually CGI, obviously. You can't really pull that off with practical effects, but they're like running around after the family, stabbing people, and that was pretty cool. Pretty cool effect that I thought was well done. As the family and their in-laws, essentially, you know, they're not happy people. There's an overall depressing tone to this film because a lot of people just don't like their in-laws, and especially around Christmas. You're forced to be with them. You're forced to be under one roof having dinner, and you don't always get along. You all have different personalities, and there's always a backstory why you don't like this person, why you don't like your aunt, why you don't like your uncle, and that's kind of the moral gist of the premise of the story, is bringing this family together in times of dire need when evil comes into play. It makes them get along because they're isolated in this house, and everything around them is a blizzard, and there's no electricity, and they are forced to use the fireplace and be close-knit with one another. And they're brought together because of the situation with Krampus. It really makes them bring out their A game. And, you know, like the middle part of the movie's really slow, but the ending is really fucking awesome. You know, the beginning and the ending are really great, really well done. And it's just the family taking on the minions and Krampus himself. And I won't say what happens exactly, but they bring out their guns and they take them on head on. And it was really, really awesome action sequences. The practical effects, again, were there. They're believable. And they're also kind of comedic, too. When you see the Jack-in-the-Box come out with his sharp teeth, it reminded me of Poltergeist with the clown under the bed. That was like probably one of my favorites of the Minions. And that's what you don't get today, are all these great practical effects that were made famous in the 70s and 80s. I mean, you don't have to have $1 million budgets to make a great movie. It's always the use of just makeup and maybe a bucket of blood or something like that. That's what makes these movies great, because they're raw, they're in your face, and they're believable. You know, when you have $2 million with all this CGI crap, it just looks completely fake, and this movie does not. It just is believable, and it makes you think, you know, especially when I was sitting there with my family, our whole like eyes glued to the theater screen, and we're just like, this is really actually way better than we thought. And even my mom just was really into it. She's like, looked over at me, she's like, wow, this movie It's really a great flick to check out on Christmas, especially, it's Halloween meets Christmas. There were some aspects of the film I didn't like, from the middle to the ending sequence. I felt like it was really dragged out because they're going from outside to inside of the house in the blizzard back inside. And it felt like I was pushed out at like a half an hour too long. And obviously the main antagonist, Krampus, wasn't really into the movie that much. He showed up here and there, but when you actually got to see him, he had like, his face was just like, looked like a mask with a lockjaw. And that was okay looking, but when you could see him from the distance, it was really believable, and his huge horns. And I thought that for the most part was okay. I think they could have done that a little better, but overall the minions looked really well done and really close to the comics. And it was just kind of slow at times, but it really picked up at the end. The acting across the board was great. Adam Scott played a really good, hero role as the father. Toni Collette was great as the mother. The old German grandma that knew about Krampus was probably the most believable, and she kind of had an eerie feel to her too, that really brought something else to this film. And of course Max, which is like the Kevin McAllister character of this film, the focal point that brought Krampus into their world. I thought he was great. And I think Krampus is going to be one of those movies 10 years from now that's going to be a cult classic. I already think it's at that level, and it's a great film for the most part, but I think it really will pick up that cult status like Trick or Treat did. When it first came out, nobody was really paying attention, but later on, pick up the Blu-ray like I'm talking about, they'll really get into it, and they'll have that following that may turn into future sequels or more comics based on this character. And that's what I'm hoping for. Michael Dougherty is a great director. He's a great storyteller, and he really brings these horror elements and scary elements that I really enjoy, that really bring me in as a fan of the genre, and especially the comics. He does it right. You don't need this huge budget to make a great film, and he never does that, but he still makes great movies. So I'm looking forward to see what he has, in the future. There's been talks of Trick or Treat 2 coming to the big screen, and really hoping that happens. Krampus is definitely going to be one of those Christmas movies I'm going to be watching with my family every year. You have Christmas Vacation and Home Alone, but this is going to be another movie that brings that horror aspect to a cheerful and joyful holiday when you're spending time with, parts of the family you don't want to be around. So you throw in this movie, and it'll bring everybody together. So I really enjoyed Krampus. It's beautiful on Blu-ray, 1080p, high definition. It looked excellent. So I really recommend it to all our followers and friends that are into these type of films. And if you're into Michael Dougherty, or if you've never seen them, definitely check this out, and definitely check out Trick or Treat. So thanks for watching. I'm giving Krampus Blu-ray a 3.5 out of 5 hair pieces. Cheers!